Hey y'all, welcome to the Filling Station. I am super excited. It's a new day, another opportunity to make money in the market or to just learn from the market, right? So let me go ahead and give my disclaimer. I am not a financial advisor. I just enjoy teaching people how to build generational wealth, and the stock market is just one of those avenues. This video is for educational purposes only. With that being said, y'all, let's get started. So we are looking at the VIX, and as you can see, we are moving sideways or in the gathering spot is what I like to say, right? So right now our support is around the 1497, and that's something that we need to definitely be mindful of because we came down to this area before, not far from it from yesterday, right? So, or yeah, 1435 is the low here from yesterday. So we need to be mindful of that. And today our resistance is somewhere around the 1505. So I try to look at 4 o'clock candle, and then I go to where the body of the candle is. And I normally mark that as my support and resistance. 1496 and 1505 is where we are trading. That's our gathering spot. That's the zone as of right now for the VIX. Now we're going to have trouble at the 1520, which is the 20 EMA, looking at it on this 30-minute chart, and the 1534. So if the VIX decides to break through this place here, we're going to have trouble at the 1553. So right now 1520, 1534, and 1553 are trouble places for the VIX to the upside. If we break those places, then 1578, which is the 200 EMA, again on this 30-minute chart. So it looks like we're trying to break out of this area. Keep in mind, normally when the VIX is up, that means the SPY is down. So as you can see, we are still on the 5 EMA. On the 1 hour chart, we're right at the 5 EMA, which is at the 1507. Again, if we break above where we are now, that 1531, 1543, and 1590, or even the 1601, those are places to the upside that we can have trouble for the VIX. Now let's look at that to the downside. We came down and we tested this area of 1459. We did make a low here of 1435. So if the VIX decides to go to the downside, those are areas that I would watch as support and resistance, right? So now let's go look at the SPY. And as you can see, the SPY is just trading in this zone and has been in this area here. I call it the gathering spot. So our support is here at 503.15, and our resistance is at 503.78, which is a very small range for the SPY. And right now, the 200 EMA, looking at it on this 30-minute chart, which is at the 504.40, is our trouble place, which is our resistance, and the 505.14. So if we break the 504.40 area, then we could very well come back up and test this 505.14 area, which it is possible again. And looking at it on this 30-minute chart, to the downside now, we have trouble at 503.31, which is the 20 EMA, which is kind of close to our 503.15 area. So that is kind of close. So right now we're just trading, we're under the 5 EMA, trying to break through that, but we're having a little trouble in that area. Just keep in mind, to the downside, 502.90 is support, which is the 50 EMA, and we could very well come back down to this area here, which is at the $500.09. So if we break the 502.90, we can come back to this area, which was stopping the SPY on yesterday. I always have to go back and say, where am I going to have trouble, or what stopped it from dropping or falling? And this is the area that kept it from going further yesterday. So we have to use that as to help us with our charting, right? So looking at the SPY to the upside, again, if we break the 504.98, we have trouble at the 507.13, and again at the 508.21. So those are areas to the upside, 507.13, 508.21, if we break above the 504.98. And to the downside, if we're under the 503.15, then the 502.97 is a trouble place, and the $500.09 is another trouble place. I'm going to go and look at it on the 4 hour just to see, where we are, and we're kind of like close in the same area. That 508.31 is right there at the 200 EMA. So that's something, if we break that level, we could very well continue, to the upside. I would normally set an alert here that if we're above that 508, I'm not saying I see that today, but again, anything is possible in the market, just when you don't think, that's when it happens, right? So to the downside, I would mark my alert under the 500.09. If we break anything below that, then we could very well continue to the downside. So if you trade the SPY, I always say trade carefully. It moves $6.89 per day. Looking at it on this daily chart here, if we cannot hold these levels here to the downside, that 500.09, if we break that by chance, we could very well come back to the 498.25 and then the 497.47 and then the 493.57. And if by chance we break that 493.57, we could very well come back down to test this 200 EMA, which is at the 474.55, which would not surprise me. Let me say that. It just wouldn't surprise me. So again, if you trade the SPY, trade carefully, mark your charts, make sure you have your entries, and get out when it goes against you, right? When it goes against your Y, always be willing to get out. So let's look at NVDA. NVDA right now, the support for us is at 841.12. Resistance I have marked at 845.03. We did come up and test this 200 EMA, which the high of this candle is 848.74, which is here. We could very well come back up to this area. However, it got rejected there, and the candle closed under the 50 EMA. So we got rejected, came up and tested it twice, and only to get, it starts selling off then. So when I say sell off, it got rejected here and then came down. So right now we tested the 200 EMA twice, got rejected, only to come back down, and we're right at the 5 EMA. We need to hold this 5 EMA at 844.17, or we're going to probably come back down to this 841.12, which is right at our 20 EMA. So those are things that I would watch if I traded NVIDIA. Our zone right now is at the 841.12 up to the 845.03. Those are places that I need to, watch. I would set my alert above the 848.73. That means if it gets to that place, then it has broken through resistance and we can continue to the upside and retest this 864.02 or the high of 860. So we can come back if we break through the 848.73. We can come back and test this high of 860.13. So that's something to be mindful of to the upside. Now to the downside, if we break under the 840.84, then we can come back down and test this 837.19 or the 824.81, which is the ATR trailing stop on this 30-minute chart. So I'm going to look and see if I see anything else as far as to the downside. We are right at support at that 840, 841 area. 841, that is our strong support, because that's where the 5 EMA and the 20 EMA. So we're kind of like in between support and resistance, which is interesting, right? Just keep in mind that, the market does what it does. If by chance we break to the upside, we still have trouble at that 848.99 area, looking at it on a higher time frame, which is the 4-hour chart. And keep in mind that NVIDIA normally moves $43.41 per day. And it on this daily chart, we came down and tested this 50 EMA, which is right here at the 823. We tested it once. It closed at 830.41. Could it continue to the downside? It can. It came down, got rejected, found support and bounced back to the upside. We can come back and, break through this time, only to fill this gap, because there is a gap fill at the 742.33 range. Not saying that that is going to take place today. Just keep in mind that there is a gap that needs to be filled for NVIDIA, and the 200 EMA is at 621.89. So I always try to be mindful of, do I have gaps that need to be filled? Because normally I mark the alerts and it lets me know when it gets to that area. So NVIDIA does have a downside gap. I would say if you trade it, trade carefully, right? So Microsoft is an inside day for us. So right now our support is at 397.75 and our resistance is at 398.45. Although we did test this high here of 399. So I'm going to mark that as my pre-market high because we will need to break above that and close above that in order to break through that resistance. So right now we're just trading in this zone, and as you can see, that's where most of our candles are. Let me see if I can make, that's where most of our candles are, the bodies of our candles are, which is here. So for Microsoft, if it breaks above 401.72, then the target is 402.16. To the downside, if it breaks below 390.31, then the target is 389.17. And keep in mind, we do have trouble to the upside at the $400.61 range. That is the 200 EMA. And it looks like it's trying to get to that place, but again, anything is possible, y'all. So if we break to the downside, if we by chance break under this 397.75, then the 397.09 and the 396.27 are places that we're going to have trouble. Those are our support places. If we should break that last 396.27, then the 394.42, which is the ATR trailing stop, that is our strong support, is what I like to say. If we break this level, we could very well come down to this downside target. So yeah, I would say if if you trade Microsoft, trade carefully. Right now we're at a interesting level. Our 5 and 50 looks like it's trying to cross. Right now we're finding support at that area of the 397.75, 397.47. Right now that's our support area, looking at it on this 1 hour chart. So again, if you trade Microsoft, I will definitely watch those levels. Keep in mind, it only normally moves about $9.87 per day. And yeah, that Microsoft should be interesting today. Definitely pay attention to your candles and what your chart is saying. I always say it's always telling us a picture. I mean, she's painting us a picture. We just have to learn how to piece it together and understand what it's saying, right? So Google is an inside day. Alphabet, Google, L-G-O-O-G-L. I always say that. Okay, so right now our gathering spot, I'm trying to go to the 4 o'clock candle, which is here. Our gathering spot is here, right at the 165.35, and it's breaking out of that area at the 165.04. It has broken out of that area. So I would definitely watch Google if that's something that you trade. I would watch Google. Right now it's breaking down. It could very well come down and find support at the 163.97, which is the 200 EMA, or the 163.60, which is the ATR trailing stop. Now, being that it is an inside day, if it breaks the 163.09, then that's our trigger to the downside. That gives us a target here of 162.60. Now back to the upside, if it breaks above 167.12, then the target to the upside is 168.10. And keep in mind, we are kind of like at a very tight range with Google right now. We're at a very, very tight range. So we are going to have trouble at the 166.42, which is the ATR trailing stop, if we're trying to make it to the upside. And it looks like we're breaking out of that area of gathering spot. So it looks like it wants to trade to the downside. I will watch the 161.42 as support if for any reason we break through this 162.60. 161.42 is an area of support for us. So which puts us right at the 50 EMA on the 4 hour at 162.51. Again, I would say if I traded Google, trade carefully. There is a gap that needs to be filled. As you can see, I have an alert set at 162.65. The gap fill, yes, the gap was created 4:30, and yeah, so it would all the way down to the 156.49. There is a gap that needs to be filled with Google, G-O-O-G-L, Alphabet. Let me make sure I get it right. So keep in mind, it moves $5.09 per day, and yeah, I would watch it and trade carefully. We are right at the 5 EMA, which is our support right now. So if you trade Google, make sure you pay attention to your charts and what the charts are telling you. AMD is our next one. Keep in mind, AMD moves $7.02 per day on this daily chart. It is right at the 200 EMA, finding support at the 144.70 range. I would say be very careful with AMD. It's been moving a little bit different. Right now, our support, looking at it on the 30-minute chart, is at 145.39. Our resistance is at 146.32. And as you can see, we've been trading in this area just not really going anywhere, which we're under the 5 EMA and above the 20 EMA, which is right at that, the line that we 145.43 area. So can it break through this 146.32? It can, but we're going to have trouble at the 147.59 or the 150.43 and at the 152.73. So those are our trouble places to the upside for AMD. So let's see what we right now. To the downside, we know that this 141 is an area of support, meaning the price has stopped at that area before. So if we break the area of where we are now, below this 5 EMA and 20 EMA, or below the 145.43, then we could very well come back down and test this 141. It is possible. And right now it shows on this 1 hour chart that we're right at support on the 5 EMA at the 145.56. So that's an area to watch. Again, it looks like it wants to break this area, but we don't know in either direction, because there is a 20 EMA which is at 146.67 and a 5 EMA at 145.62. So we're trading in this zone. At some point it's going to break to the upside or to the downside. Our MACD did give us a signal that it crossed, and it looks like it's trying to go to the upside, but again, just know that we're going to have trouble at 150.45, 154.71 and 155.76 looking at this 1 hour chart. So again, if you trade AMD, I would say trade carefully. Right now we're in this zone, in the gathering spot, not really moving or going anywhere. And we do have, it looks like it want to break to the upside, but again, anything is possible. I always say that in the market, anything is possible. So let's go back to the SPY just to see. Again, we're in this little trading zone. I call it the no trade zone. We're just not really going anywhere. Again, just keep in mind 503.15, 503.78 is our resistance, 503.15 is our support. It could break in either direction. Tesla right now. It seems like we're breaking out of the gathering spot. 183.46 is support, 184.63 is resistance, but we're right there at our support area. So my alert is going to go under the 182.15. If we break this area, then we've broken through some support, so we may be trading to the downside for Tesla. So again, y'all, I hope these videos are very, very helpful. This is what I see when I look at the market. I try to give, where am I going to have trouble? Where are my trouble places, right? Support and resistance. So yeah, I hope that everyone have an awesome day today, a very profitable day today, y'all. And I always like to leave you with this: be blessed as well as a blessing unto others. Until next time.